say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. Their appetite is the same. Their motives are the same. It's only their mannerisms and methods that differ.
See, it's no in between. You're either free or you're a slave. There's no such thing as second-class citizenship. That's like telling me you can be a little bit pregnant. Today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
And so I believe that education process must be a process of two steps: inspiration and information. So I seriously give information, but black people are people of rhythm and spirit, so I also give inspiration.
And everybody's smart enough to know that, we've been slighted, and we want ours. And I don't mean by like ours, 40 acres and a mule, because we're past that. But we need help. For us to be on our own 2 feet, us meaning youth, or us meaning black people, whatever you want to take it from. For us to be on our own 2 feet, we do need help. Because we have been here, we have been a good friend. If you want to make it a relationship type thing, we have been there, and now we deserve our payback. It's like you got a friend that you don't never look out for.
That means you're still running a plantation, and we reject your plantation and your plantation mentality. It's the time of Exodus.
Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the best political show on the internet. You are now watching Purple Pill Politics. I'm your host, FEJ on Twitter. That's where you can follow me, or you can also follow me at LibreTV.co at Solomon, or you can follow the entire Libre Network at the Libre Network on Instagram. And I'm joined as always by this dude.
You got it right this time.
We're in the right position.
Yeah. I got you. G Frazier, Corey, or Inspires the Block on Twitter, and also IG. You can also catch me on MiddlePassageMedia.com, where we bring the latest and most up-to-date stories on MiddlePassageMedia.com. Also, Sunday Good News Live, and also Correct the Felon Podcast. Both of those shows were Good News Live. Sunday Good News Live is at 9 a.m. on Sunday, and Correct the Felon Podcast is available 7 p.m. So, holla at your boy.
All right, and tonight we got a very, very special guest down below, down here. It's easy to do down, because you ain't got to figure out which way to go. But good brother, introduce yourself and let the people know what you got going on. But go ahead and introduce yourself so people can know who you are and what you have going on.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Nickolas Wildstar, a.k.a. the Governor. I am running for governor of California. I was the 2018 Libertarian candidate for California governor, and I am running again against Gavin Newsom here if we have our special election, if not in 2022. But I'm a longtime community activist, raptivist actually, since I'm also a rap artist, and I've been involved in lots of protests and marches over the past decade, and am a very involved community activist that, again, am seeking to be a representative of we the people.
Okay, that's what's up. Now, since we got into that, would you, for example, what was the last protest that you participated in?
Last protest I participated in was a Recall California protest. So, as you guys know, California was one of those many states that had imposed a lockdown due to the coronavirus. We were one of the first states to initiate that, and are one of the last states to still have those provisions being placed on people to where businesses are closed, schools are closed, and many public places like parks and beaches are still inaccessible. So that was one of the last few protests that I was involved in, I believe.
All right. So what we're going to do, because I want to give you the majority of the time where we can talk about you, your platform, your thoughts, ideology. We're going to break all that stuff down. But I think we're going to have to talk about, I guess, which is probably the most trending topic right now. And we're only going to do one tonight just because to me it was the one that was put to the forefront. And that would be this guy right here.
Oh, my goodness.
He's being accused of, well, let me just read it. I'll read it directly from ABC News. Okay. And ABC News is reporting that Matthew, I believe it's Matthew, is it Gates? I believe it's how he says there's a Getz, or I'm not quite sure, but we're just gonna say
I think it is.
Yeah. All right. So Matthew Getz, right, from ABC News on Twitter says federal investigation into Republican Matt Getz is focused on allegations he had a sexual relationship with at least one minor, and is scrutinizing his conduct not only in Florida but in other states as well. Sources tell at ABC News. First of all, have you heard about this story?
Yes, I have.
And do you have any thoughts on this story?
Well, I think it's, if anything, exemplary of where our government is today, to where we have a lot of officials that are involved in corruption, not only the obvious corruption that we see from them, but behind the scenes as well. That's why more transparency is needed in government. That way we can know what they're actually doing, what they're spending their money on, especially if it's campaign funds, and what type of relationships that they are having with particular people. Because I know for a fact that won't ever happen to me. You know?
Yeah, I think it's I think when we start getting into anything dealing with children, anything going on, it's like, now they're just allegations, but it's like, and when allegations like this come out, it's always, in my opinion, a bad look. I'm not saying the man is guilty. I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying, once again, it's a bad look. And I think the country, and I think because we basically run a two-party system, that we need to do a better job of kind of policing ourselves, right? Because something like this, it shouldn't be happening anyway, and you definitely shouldn't be representing the people, and you have something like this going on. So I still going to wait until the investigation goes on, and I'll make my decision at that point. However, I still think like it's a really bad look. What are your thoughts, Corey?
Cancel his ass immediately. I don't give a damn, right? It don't got nothing to do really if he guilty or not. Only reason why is because, especially from the conservative and Republican side, man, they go so hard on black culture. Anything we're dealing with black culture, they be talking about get rid of it. With Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B or anything like that. And so my thing is, counsel that let them start feeling the same repercussions or the actions that they like to put out there. So no, get rid of his ass now. Bye. So that's my thoughts on it. Not that I really give a damn about him personally, but it's just what they do to black culture. Anything involving anything that they consider negative or black culture, they try to cancel it. Mm-hmm. And so, that's just all. Nothing personal, brother, but get your ass out of there. Bye.
So just to make sure, you want to cancel him only because conservatives want to cancel things with black culture. Yes. And because he's a Republican, you believe that would be, I guess, equal punishment.
Fair. Yes, fair. It's going to be interesting to see how many Republicans and conservatives step up to be like, hey, based on allegations alone, because they quick to just run with allegations when it's dealing with the other side, or especially our culture. So, bye. Get on up out of there.
He's absolutely right. If I may say, Corey, you couldn't be even any more truer, especially with the people on the right and the people that I guess they believe to be examples of what they want in government, Mm-hmm. And when it came to Joe Biden and any type of allegations against him, they were immediately saying, even if there isn't any proof of that he needs to go, mm-hmm. And I wrote, circulating pictures of him with children and, other family members or whatever, and saying this is bad conduct. But yet here is a well-known conservative, a well-known Republican candidate being accused of having an improper relationship with a minor. And that's something right now that people on the right, so-called conservatives, are vehemently against, and rallying for. So if they really truly feel like the issue of the matter is a problem, then they need to be denouncing him immediately.
And I totally agree. And it's, for example, like if somebody down here that ran for a congressional seat down here in Atlanta, I'm not going to say her name, but her platform is protecting children. She's a conservative. She's a Republican, black conservative. And that's her thing. I mean, she goes hard at Joe Biden about that. A lot of people in the Democratic Party about that. So it's going to be interesting to see if, did she do the same thing with Matt Gaetz? So I mean, hold
until the evidence comes out.
Exactly, but we know that's gonna be the spin. Fox News is gonna be like, wait till the evidence come out. But if it's anybody else, especially like I said in black culture or in the Democratic Party, they pound the pavement with it. So I just think it's a fair standard.
Why didn't you say her name?
Well, I mean, I'd say her name. I ain't tripping. Angela Stanton King.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering. I mean, normally you're not the one. To really hold back. I was like, why did you want to say who it was?
Because of the brother on our show. He's running for governor, so he ain't
gonna hold no punches. So,
but
you still want to be, but you still want to be careful. I'm one of those guys when we have guests. Like I'll hold my own fire. When we have guests on, of course, I don't want them to bring up something, later on, turn into a 30-second clip and be crazy with it. That's just all.
Oh well, yeah. This brother about to let you know how he rolled because.
Well, I mean, he opened the door for it too. I'm rocking with him. I still want to protect him as much as I can because the brother is really trying to do something major. So
Well,
I'm with you on that, man. They all need to get thrown under the bus, especially if they're so-called about the principle. Keep that same energy.
Okay, so let's get into that, right? You talked about principles. Now, because of the way politics run these days, as far as principles, ideology, I believe in the party that you're running after. Can you just kind of give us a little background on that? Like, what is your political ideology? What is your philosophy, and which party, or are you running as an independent? Just some background about that, so then we can go ahead and start to break down the platform.
Absolutely. Well, believe it or not, I used to be a Democrat. I was a long-time Democratic voter up until the first election of Barack Obama, which I felt like was the ultimate failure to me, especially being a black man and wanting to see incredible changes through our government. And with him advocating for that on the campaign trail, wanting to get, Wall Street out of government, since they are heavy influencers and special interests when it comes to political policy, wanting to end foreign wars and, wanting to improve the economic conditions of Black Americans. I was all for that, of course. He gets elected, and a month into him being in office, he takes $500,000 from Goldman Sachs and bails out the banks, because this was when a recession happened. And, fresh off of Bush's terms in office, where he pretty much ruined our country's economy, and Obama pretty much just added a cherry on top. So once I saw that, I was done with the Democratic Party. I was done with the political system altogether, and was reintroduced to it by a libertarian named Ron Paul. He's a longtime congressman from Texas, and actually was a Republican in the office. But when he ran for president against Barack Obama in 2008, he ran as a libertarian. And then he ran against him again in 2012 as a Republican candidate, basically promoting the libertarian platform on a larger stage. And that was my first time getting involved in any political campaign whatsoever. So it went from just being promoting political change through activism to getting involved with political change myself. So I was very involved in this campaign, and wanted to also be a reflection of that myself by seeing the failures of my own representatives here in the state locally. So wanting to challenge them, I put my name in the hat as a candidate for governor in 2014 as a write-in candidate, then ran again in 2018. And like I said, I ran as a libertarian then, more so because I saw my values and my principles align more with what the libertarians want. And that's basically just freedom, liberty, and justice for all. I mean, live and let live, the golden rule of life that we all know, treat others how we want to be treated. That's pretty much at the forefront of the libertarian idea with the non-aggression principle. But to take that further, to say that any elected officials should also be creating policies that reflect that. Our drug policy is not a reflection of that. Many innocent people get harmed in that. It's a non-violent offense. It's a victimless offense. You know, if I'm in possession of drugs, who does that harm? If I'm using drugs, who does that harm? Nobody other than myself, and that shouldn't be anybody's business but my own. So that's pretty much the stance that the Libertarian Party takes, and that's what I'm promoting as now a Libertarian Republican for California governor.
Okay, now one extension to that, I'm gonna ask the extension of since you brought up drugs, right? Let's talk about that, because what a lot of people will say, or not even what a lot of people will say. I always believe that it's around 47% of the country that will agree with one thing, and then it's 47% of the country that'll disagree with something, and then you got about 6% that'll actually have a discussion about it. So right. When you talk about drugs, right, like you said, okay, I'm gonna play the person on the right that says, number one, drugs are immoral. Number two, well, what if you're doing your marijuana or you're doing your crack, and then you go out there and you kill somebody? What is your response to them?
Well, no substance is going to stop any particular person that's criminal minded from committing a crime. So as much as they want to blame that person's activity on a substance, that's simply a crutch so they can blame that substance itself because they may have an issue with it. I would also argue that for anybody that believes that drugs are immoral, that the same stance was taken to prevent purchases of alcohol during the Prohibition era. Mm-hmm. And what we seen from that was pretty much the creation of a black market of criminal activity, all unnecessary, that led to loss of life and then later was reversed. And now we have a society that's more free because of it. Not to mention you have people that are drunk and they drive and they take weapons and they harm people. Mm-hmm. So to think that we can legislate morality is a fool's idea. And that's been the problem this entire time, is that mainly white supremacists or advocates of such believe that by creating such law that we as a society can be controlled to behave a certain way, especially black people, which they feel like is subhuman and need to be disciplined to some degree. So it's sad that we again have a society that feels like they feel that through the law system that we can be made to be better people, when it's exactly the opposite that's happening. We need to be looking at the evidence more than anything.
I want to ask a question real quick, and it's something that you said earlier about how you consider yourself politically, right? And you said libertarian Republican, right? We all know an overwhelming majority in the black community, the word Republican is pretty much equal to white supremacy. Yeah. That's how we see it, right? That's just synonymous. That would word synonymous to white supremacy, and it's how they look at it. But you running as a libertarian Republican, how do you think that that's going to play over with black people in your state?
Well, believe it or not, it's been well received. I've been out there collecting signatures to recall Gavin Newsom here as And in me doing so, I introduced myself to those people to let them know that I'm also a candidate running for governor. I did this petitioning in mainly areas that were considered to be Democrat, minority areas. And in speaking with those people, I let them know, hey, I'm going to be running as a Republican. And they, wow, I'm glad to see a Black man step up to vote, to run as a Republican, because we've gotten so pigeonholed by the mainstream media to make us believe and think that all Black people are all Democrats, and they all look a certain way, and they all think a certain way. Black people are not monolithic. We are not just all one single-minded. And I'm an example of that. So if anything, it's a breath of fresh air to those people that want to get away from that type of stereotype. It also creates an opportunity for those people that want to get away from the control that the Democratic Party has had on our state this entire time. And I mean, when you look at the problems in our state, as far as homelessness, police violence, taxes, et cetera, these people have been in charge, Democrats, So we can't blame the Republicans for all of the problems here in our state. As much as people want to point fingers at Trump and what he did during his administration while he was in Washington, we're now looking at the Biden administration and the threat that they pose against the people of California, not wanting to be mandatorily vaccinated, not wanting to carry a passport to prove such a thing, not have to pay more taxes, since they're, again, increasing taxes through these bailout packages. So it's just a domino effect of bad policies, and then the people of California wanting to get into position to stop them. We know that it's difficult for a third party candidate to actually challenge the two-party system. So at this point, I just let them know strategically, we got to infiltrate the system. I can't do it as a Democrat. I'm not going to be able to beat him as a Democrat because they're going to put all their money into him. He's their golden boy, So if we want to be able to challenge him on his level, it's going to have to be as a Republican. So I've gotten a lot of support from the Black community because of that. And I hope that I'll, again, continue to have that grow as the few months go on.
Okay. Next question I have for you is along this legalization issue, right? When I think of the government, I believe that as far as what should be legal and what should be illegal, right? What I believe should be illegal in this country is anything that does one of these two things, because we talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So if you believe in those three principles, I believe that anything that personally involves someone trying to interfere with any one of those three should be illegal. Like, for example, your life. If you kill somebody, of course, that should be something that should be punishable, right?
Right.
When you talk about liberty, the pursuit of happiness, my property, breaking into somebody's house, some crimes like this. But I feel like all crimes that adults make as adults, like, for example, I don't believe prostitution should be illegal, right? Because to me, it's two adults making an adult decision. Why is the government stepping in saying, no, you can't do this because of whatever reason they have? Oh, we got to protect women. It doesn't matter. Women are going to do it regardless. The only thing that the government comes in is they add a punitive, they add a punitive measure on the other end. And it's like they're going to still do whatever they do.
Right.
And we already have versions of it, because what I tell people is, for the most part, how can you explain porn is legal, but prostitution is not?
Exactly.
Right? The only difference is, and the funny thing about it is, the porn has actual evidence, right? You can watch it, they record it. So versus, somebody just, back in the day, cat might go on Backpage, whatever the case may be, solicit a young lady, do his thing, and it's over and done with. But then it's like the government stepped in and said, no, y'all can't do this. I think that stuff like gambling and all those things should be legal because you're an adult making an adult decision. So I agree with what Aquarian Anarchy said. If there's no victim, there's no crime.
Absolutely.
Same thing. So in any crime, there must be a victim. That's the reason why I say, like, of course, like, I'm not gonna get into like some of the other serious, but it's like pretty simple. If you don't do anything to harm me personally, right? If you can smoke all the crack you want, doesn't bother me. If you know, it shouldn't really be anything outside of those, because I think people continue to want to try to legislate morality. And I know we're probably going to get into it in a little bit in gun control, but if you go back to the Oklahoma City bombing, right? Everything that he needed to do what he did in Oklahoma, you can go get at Home Depot. So unless you're going to basically say anything that can ever be used for destruction or harm is going to be illegal, then I think that's a problem. What are your thoughts on what I said? What do you kind of run around this? Do you kind of believe the same thing, or what are your thoughts on what should be illegal?
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's sad that a lot of voluntary transactions, such as, you know, sex work or purchases of drugs, you know, is looked at as being criminal activity. And again, you can just take the example of prohibition to say why decriminalization works and is a benefit to all of society, because it alleviates criminal activity, it alleviates a black market, and it makes, if anything, a greater opportunity of prosperity for everyone. To where before you only had so many alcohol distributors and makers, you know, now you have mom and pop shops that create craft beers, and, you know, which is another thing that took a long time to even get approved by the government for us to get permission from them to buy. But government regulation has done nothing but put us in a even more threatening environment. California's marijuana laws is another example of that. I mean, even though we were one of the first few states to have medicinal marijuana laws, we pretty much drug our feet on making it recreational. But now that it has become recreational, you've seen a lot of the black market activity from drugs being smuggled over the border from Mexico or from other countries seem to subside. Now it's more so focused on other drugs that are being criminalized, like fentanyl or meth or any other type of substance. So if anything, I, as governor, will be decriminalizing all substances. That way we can again focus on, or have law enforcement focus on hardened criminals versus those people involved in voluntary transactions. And the porn example is great also, because we even have right now sex workers that are, you know, performing and providing work through OnlyFans or other social media platforms. And the only difference between them and a person that's doing it privately is that they're being taxed for it. Government wants to be able to take some of that money and take a chunk of that that money being earned. Same thing with drugs. So if we decriminalize it, now we take away government's desire and thirst for more greed by taking money from hardworking people where it doesn't belong. That's my plan as governor, and the policies that I will be reversing in the state will reflect that.
All right, what you got something for?
No, right now I don't. I'm gonna let you go. I know you got a laundry list of questions, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get around to some of the ones I would dive in on.
Got you. So let's go to an event that occurred, I believe a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I can't remember right now, but the incident that happened. Well, let's just talk about two incidents. We had an incident in Atlanta with a shooter in some massage parlors, and then we had a gunman in Colorado. What are your thoughts on gun control, gun legislation? Should Americans be able to own any type of weapon? Should there be any restrictions whatsoever on the type of weapons that you believe American citizens can own? Or should it just be they can own anything, even military weapons, like military grade weapons? Do you think that is something that not should be? Well, yeah. Do you believe that they should even be able to own military grade weapons? So I want to know what your thoughts are, because sometimes people say, yeah, it should be any restrictions, but I want to go even further and say, I want a bazooka, right? I want a grenade launcher.
Yeah.
I want a 50 caliber. I want to, you got some rappers out here, right? That's got a lot of money. He can go get him a M1 tank, right? Should that be on the table, or is that kind of where you draw the line once it gets to military? So I want to know what your thoughts are on gun control.
Not at all. I don't think there should be any restriction to a person being able to acquire whatever tool that they need to protect themselves. That's what I look at as weapons as being, is just tools of self-defense. And our nation's constitution also reflects that by saying we have the right to bear arms and it shall not be infringed. It does not say, but you are not allowed to have military grade weapons, or you must be 18. It doesn't have any of these other restrictions to you having access to purchase tools of protections. And that's what I'll be doing as governor, is I'll be repealing and nullify any and all unconstitutional gun laws here in the state. The Mulford Act is one of them. That was a law that was created to basically prevent the people from being able to openly carrying here in the state. This was signed into law by Republicans. A Republican governor, Ronald Reagan at the time, signed this law, and it was all in response to Black Panther Party members and carrying on the state capitol. Had that not happened, California would still be a constitutional carry state, but open carry state. When it should be constitutional carry, that's exactly what I'll be doing, is again repealing and nullifying all of these racist gun laws, which were created more so in response to preventing Black people from having guns and being able to protect themselves. And I think right now that should be more needed than ever, when we're pretty much being told through our legal system that it's open season on Black people, and that police officers like Derek Chauvin and the police officers that killed Stephon Clark and many other Black people get off and are able to continue providing a service in the community and receiving taxpayers' money because of it. That's our money. We're paying for our own demise. And these lawmakers that are preventing us from being able to protect ourselves aren't making anything easier. So they need to go, as well as the bad law enforcement officers.
Let me ask a question real quick, and it's in response to what you're saying now. I'm all for gun rights, right? But I do think that I don't think nobody should be able to own an RPG. Like, are you okay with people owning RPGs and hand grenades and stuff like that?
Yep.
How does that protect? How would that align to self-defense?
Why are they using those type of weapons, and what are they using them for? You have a lot of collectors too that are just enthusiasts, and it's just like acquiring any type of other collector's item. If you like shoes and you want some, Air Force Ones from the 80s or something like that, you're going to pay to get it. If you're a card collector, you might be searching for a specific card or whatever to add to your collection. What I've come to find is the people that want to have a tank or want to have an RPG or something like that, it's more so because they want to have it for those collective reasons, not because they want to go out and harm somebody because of it. But if they do, our response is to make sure that we have people in law enforcement that have that same type of artillery. That way they're able to compete. For instance, I'm elected governor. I'm, commander-in-chief of all law enforcement in the state. I'm going to make sure our law enforcement personnel has the best weaponry and technology available to defend the people of this state. Even if the people of this state have those same weapons available to them. A more armed populace is a more safer populace. In a place like the shooting that happened in Denver or in Colorado, that happened in a place where there are very restrictive gun laws. Why is it that this person was still able to be in possession of a weapon and cause destruction? And that's because he's a criminal, and criminals are going to do wrong no matter what laws are in place. So nothing's going to stop them from doing that. I know if I want to be able to purchase a box of grenades, then that should be my business. Now, if I go out and use them in a destructive way, then it'll be tracked back to me, and I'll have to deal with the repercussions because of that.
Okay. Oh wow! So yeah, well, they're gonna be coming out with grenade control and tank control, and we just have so many other different things that I think some legislators would go out. My thoughts on gun control is this: I think whatever the state has, I want to be able to have access to the same thing. Exactly. If you want to talk about rejecting tyranny, or you want to talk about having an oppressive state or a repressive regime, whatever you want to call it, right? I think that if the state is allowed to have it, then the people should be allowed to have it too. And if you feel that type of way about whatever weapon we're talking about, then the state shouldn't be able to have it either. That's the reason why, like, for example, like I look at Britain, right? And people say, well, I think they have certain like rifles, and they can have like very, very limited like list of weapons that I believe they can have in a place like Britain. But I always believe that the only way that you stop the government from going all the way out, or people talk about having a fascist government, or we have some sort of dictatorship in America. The only way to prevent that is the people have to be looked at, and not even what I considered feared, right? But they have to be respected enough that the government knows, well, yeah, we might want to try to enforce this with the military, but they got everything we got. So it's not a real, the training and everything will be different, but it would at least make, in my opinion, the government pause, because everybody would be on an equal playing field. And I think
exactly
that is the way I look at it. So I'm like, I'm for, like, it's like what major countries do. If you de-arm somewhat, I'm almost to the point where I'm like, okay, if they say the police only have tasers, right? Then what can the people have? Okay, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I'm still gonna keep my firearms, but maybe we can kind of sort of level the playing field a little bit. But that's just the way I look at it. I feel like whatever the state has, that's my rule. Whatever the state has, I think the people should have, because if you're worried about the people having it, why does the state have it?
Exactly. I just did an interview with a guy from Australia, and he said that one of the things that Australians view American as being is this stronghold where everybody is armed, and you don't mess with Americans because you're going to have a fight on your hands. Here in California, we have a coast to protect. So if we want to make sure that our law enforcement personnel is backed up by a populace in the event there would be an invasion, God forbid, then we want to make sure that the people here, the average person, has the ability to make a purchase and be in possession of any type of weapon that's going to protect them and their countrymen. We have laws in the state to where, as a homeowner, if I was to, shoot some home invader, I can't use rubber bullets because maiming is illegal, so I must shoot to kill. That should not be the case. I shouldn't be forced to kill anyone. But we have, again, laws that prevent us from just mainly protecting ourselves because they see it as being a liability issue. That's absurd. When that weapon should be used to protect me in any case and scenario, and I should be able to use that in defense of my person in any way as well.
I got another one on the gun control. Not necessarily is gun control. As governor, what would you do about restoring felony, convicted felons rights to bear arms?
I don't think any person should be having their God-given natural rights, their human rights, taken away from them simply because they made a mistake. If the person served their time and they're out in the general public now, then all of their rights should be restored to them. If they're a threat to not be in possession of a gun, then they shouldn't be on the streets. I mean, that's just, common sense. So when it comes to felons not being able to bear arms, exercise their right to bear arms, or their right to go and vote, or be in custody of children, let's say, there's many types of situations where that's happened as well. It's because the person is a felon, they aren't able to see their kids. That's extremely unfair. So we need to be reforming our system, making it to where each person is dealt with on a case-by-case scenario, instead of having these blanket policies that kind of just, again, discriminate and change lives of people where the ability for them to think for themselves or actually argue against that is taken away from them.
Okay.
Okay.
Because of everything that's been going on since I guess it's on. I mean, we over 14 months into this thing right now. The pandemic, COVID-19, coronavirus, all those different types of things. It's raised a lot of interesting questions. So my first question to you is healthcare. As California governor, as far as state healthcare, I know it's a little different, but it's more of a national issue nowadays. But as far as healthcare goes from a state level, what would healthcare look like if you were elected, or do you even believe that we should have state-run healthcare?
Well, I believe every person has the right to health care. What I don't believe is they have the right to force other people to pay for it. And so when it comes to government provided, public provided health care, it's really health insurance that we're talking about. Because that's what's more so the policy reflect is insurance policies to protect those people that do not have the ability to afford protection of health themselves. I don't think any person should be forced to acquire any type of insurance, whether it be health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, home insurance, whatever the case may be. It shouldn't be required for you to obtain that. So I would not be mandating such a thing. If anything, as I said before, I'll be nullifying those policies that restrict the individual from being able to exercise their civil liberties and individual rights. That being one of them is them being able to choose on if they want to have health insurance or not. When it comes to emergency services and people that may not be in a position financially to provide for themselves, I think we can, as a community, provide a basic service of that, but it should be voluntary. I as a taxpayer don't want to be fined if I choose not to contribute towards such a program. That's what's happening right now through Obamacare in the state of California is, you're fined if you don't participate. And I don't want that. Nobody wants that. But like I said, there are people that are in need of such help, whether it be, children or elderly. And so we as a community can come up with a better way to provide that doesn't have to be state funded. It could possibly be even a charity or provided by a church or, just members of the community that are voluntarily making contributions to provide that service.
Yeah.
So as governor, I was gonna say, so as governor of California, you wouldn't try in some capacity to make sure that those that actually can afford health insurance get it? You just pretty much on your own, huh?
No, like I just said, I'll do so, but it won't be forcing you as the California resident and taxpayer and financial provider of that program to pay for it. I think all government programs should be voluntary. We should choose on if we want to contribute to it or not, whether it be health insurance or schools or, helping the homeless. It's a lot of people that don't feel like they want their money to help get people off the streets because they feel like, hey, you did whatever you did to get there and you're on your own. But right now we have government officials taking tens of millions of our dollars and supposedly using it to address the homeless issue, but we're not seeing things get better. So they're taking our money, they're not doing anything with it to address the issue, at least to satisfy us, to make us feel like things are better. So why should we continue to pay for it? That's all I'm saying is we, the people of California, don't want to be forced to pay for it, and I won't be doing that as governor.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I like the community aspect of it because I kind of look at it like a public school, right? I believe that when you send your child to school, there isn't like how can I explain it? You pay for it, but you're not paying for it to the equivalent of a private school, right? Mm-hmm. So I believe if we're going to talk about healthcare and we're talking about community healthcare, I believe that to me is a better solution that's based on the way things are right now. Is there something that we can do on the municipal, on the county, maybe on the city level where you have these services provided the same way your child goes to school?
Right.
People can say, well, the level of that healthcare might not be where you think it should be. And I would say, well, it always goes back to to be honest with you, that's the kind of sort of the sad part of life. Like if my kid goes to public school and your kid goes to a $30,000 a year private school, I can't expect the same level of education. Right. The same shouldn't be expected of healthcare. If you're going to the free clinic that's available in your town, right? You live in a town of 1,500 people and y'all have a local community doctor, whatever the case may be, and you get to go in for checkups and things like that, then you can expect to have the same level of healthcare of somebody who has an HMO gold level healthcare plan through their job and they live in a big city. You got to be able to understand that you got to kind of sort of meet people where they are. I think that part is better. I do not like the mandate. And I do believe, once again, all taxable elections should be just like what they are. They should be optional. Mm-hmm. When you go and you fill out your W-2 or your 1099, and we're going to go into taxes next. But that's the way I look at it, right? If you want to contribute towards this program, if you want to contribute towards that program, because let's just go ahead and talk about that right now. Taxation. I know you're running as governor of California, but I still want to get your opinion on a national level. From a national level, and then we'll go to the state level. How do you feel taxation should work?
I think it should be an application process to where the people of the state respectively are given an opportunity to choose on where they would like to make a contribution. So if it was a simple card with multiple choice and said, would you like to make a contribution towards schools? Check. Would you like to make a contribution towards healthcare for, minors and the elderly? Check. Give we the people an opportunity to choose on where we're spending that money. I, as a taxpayer right now, have a problem with the federal government using my money to, go and bomb foreign countries. I got a big problem with that. I got a big problem with my tax dollars being used to subsidize private companies. That's your business. I shouldn't be funding it unless I'm going to be a benefactor of that, especially if I'm acting as an investor. If I'm a direct investor, I would get some type of percentage as a kickback. But you're using my tax dollars through way of government to prop up that same business, and I'm not receiving that. But the corporate lobbyists that, keep these politicians in office to support their policies are the ones that benefit from it. So We need to start paying attention to where our money is going, which is why, as governor, I'll be auditing the state. That way we can actually find out where our money has been going this entire time. There's been small reports that have exposed that a lot of our tax dollars have been wastefully spent during this pandemic. I mean, you guys heard about the PPP loans that were meant to help small businesses. Well, our governor has a multi-million-dollar winery that qualified for one of those small business loans. That's ridiculous when we have mom and pop shops closing all around the state, you know? So why is it that his business got to qualify for assistance before those others? So we need to find out where our money is going. And right now we know that it's being, wastefully spent and going down the drain.
Okay, question. How would you respond to this comment from Twitter? This is from Ty Crook, PhD. He says, such a system would ensure Black folks especially would not receive equitable resources where needed. Now, I'm not quite sure if he was talking about my community version or if he was talking about your version. But either way, address that. What do you believe about that comment? What are your thoughts?
Well, our current economic system does nothing to help Black communities. As much as they say, that's what the census is for, or your local representatives, assembly, or city council, or whatever the case may be. They look at certain neighborhoods and they're supposed to delegate the funds where they're needed the most. That does not happen at all. I live in Fresno, California, which is probably one of the most diverse cities in California. And a lot of the money that's collected here from people of the city is spent on one side. They got better schools, they got better streets, better parks, they have better everything. But then you come on this side of the street and it's still the same city, still same city officials, same tax bracket or whatever the case. But why is it this side of the city looks more run down and, is less attended to? And that's because you have officials that are redlining. And once they get into office, they delegate the funds according to that red line districting. We need to stop that practice altogether. It's still happening in our state. I'm pretty sure it's happening all over the country. But if we want to make sure that the people there locally are having the opportunity to make sure that any taxes collected are being spent to improve their communities there, then we need to keep that money local instead of letting it be redistributed by government officials. That's what's happening right now.
Okay. You got something, Corey? Because I was going to keep going.
You can keep going. I'm cool.
Okay. So once again, we got another question. Because I will be in agreement, because I say we can continue to complain about the current system that we have in place, right? Because it's the current system we have in place. But to offer some sort of change or some sort of solution to make things better, I think sometimes people will look at it and say, well, it'll make the system worse. And my question is, well, what system did we have in place 70 years ago?
Exactly.
70 years ago, we didn't have any sort of healthcare, and it's like people still maintained and got through it. You could say, well, people weren't living as long. You can always make any sort of argument about how you want to be able to view what you believe the government should do for you. However, I think that one thing that we have to come to a conclusion is, and it might not be it's just reality. Number one, you can't save everybody. Number two, there is no such thing as fair. When we're talking about politics, when we're talking about the federal government, it does not exist.
Right.
Because if things were fair, slavery would have never happened, right? If things were fair, we wouldn't be celebrating the Civil Rights Act of 1964, because we should have already had rights anyway. If things were fair, we would have never had Jim Crow imposed upon us in this country. If things were fair, we wouldn't get shot in the middle of the street. But it's not fair. And the problem is we always want to try to regulate the behavior, or we always want to try to fix something. And the bottom line is we're only making it worse by continuing to add to it, in my opinion. Because I feel like there is nothing about the U.S. government that is good, period. In the history of this country. What do you say?
The saddest part about the point you're making is that a lot of people believe that that correction is going to come by way of more government. It's like, are you not realizing the problem right now is government, but you want to give them more authorities, more power, more money to supposedly fix the problem? That's ridiculous. I mean, it's doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. We're doing exactly that.
I think you make a good point, but I think it goes back to the, let's say, for example, you call me and you say, my toilet's overflowing, right? And then I come over and I just put a hole in the wall and now your bathroom's flooded. And I say, oh, I'm sorry. And you're sitting there telling me like, hey, what's up, man? I just asked you to fix my toilet. Well, I tried. I'm sorry I made it worse. You know what I mean? And then I just leave and like, good luck with that toilet that I just messed up. And the problem's still not solved. The problem's still not fixed. So I think a lot of times when we try to analyze problems, right? When we talk about problems, I believe you can't call something a problem if there isn't a solution. That's just the way the English language works. If there's a problem, there's a solution. Like, let's look at it mathematically, right? If I say, okay, here's your word problem, it has to have a solution to it. Otherwise, it's not a problem. It's just a complaint.
Right.
So I think a lot of times we need to go to the root source. And I think sometimes, and I do blame the government for a lot of the issues that we do have in the Black community. But my question is giving them more going to, we don't, the bottom line is this. There is nothing in American history that says the government will have any sort of solution for Black America, period. So the way I look at it is, if I am looking for the government to be that solution, then I think that we're just going to continue to be at the bottom of this country. I think until we start to come together as a community and we say, okay, healthcare is a problem, education is a problem. How can we, the community, fix it? Because if we don't take that step, then I think that that's going to just continue to be a problem. And it's one of those things where you have kids.
Yes, sir.
You have kids. Okay. It's a situation where it's like, I talked to my dad. My dad's 70 years old.
Oh, wow.
They had this level of problems, right? When he was growing up, right? He grew up during Jim Crow. So it's like, from his generation to my generation, what problems are we still experiencing in the Black community? Mm-hmm. From my generation to my children's generation, what problems will they have, and how can we move so that this continues, in my opinion, to at least move in a positive direction? Right. And I think that needs to be the focus. Go ahead. I thought you
I was going to say real quick, in the comment section, somebody asked about your stance on reparations, which I think will be a good way for the government to fix, issues in the Black community. So the comment, I'll put it up on the screen. Where do you stand on reparations?
I don't support reparations at all. I think the best way to make sure that those that have suffered due to slavery in this country should receive restitutions. And that is basically penalizing those people directly involved, opposed to where reparations, that makes everybody pay that didn't have shit to do with it. And that's the big concern with reparations right now, because it's actually being considered in California by state legislators, and is actually being imposed in Oakland, of all places. The mayor of Oakland announced that Black people and people of color, because this also includes, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, everybody except for white people gets $500 a month. But everybody in Oakland will be taxed to pay for that program. So when you talk about
that's not correct. I just did a show on that, and that's not correct. That is not all that money is not, none of that money is coming from through taxation. It's coming from, matter of fact, I got it over here. Give me one moment. You can make your point now, but you want to get the paper.
The same thing was considered in Stockton under the mayor of Stockton during that time, and it was basically a partnership program with another what is it called?
Municipality?
No, nonprofit organization that does.
Exactly, it's a nonprofit organization. Like I said, I just did something about that, but go ahead. I'm just getting the article that I had.
Well, that was the issue with Stockton, was that we found out it wasn't 100% funded by that nonprofit organization and the donations that they were receiving. It still was some government subsidizing, some, balancing of funding being paid for by taxpayers. The same thing is going to happen with this program in Oakland. It's not 100% going to be funded by outside entities. A portion of that will be paid for by taxpayers, including the payment and implementation of the program, which is a government program. So government employees get paid for by, taxpayers, us, we the people. Why not make it 100% completely independent, separate from government? That way they can be held accountable if there is any issues with the money or, people having access to the programs. Those people can then turn to the government to say, hey, they're not operating as they should. Something's fishy going on. I think you should investigate. Instead of causing a conflict of interest right now by having it be another government provided program. The unemployment department is an example that's similar to that. We have right now a government program that's supposed to be helping those people in need that have lost their jobs due to this pandemic, and millions of people aren't even receiving aid. They have valid claims through our EDD department, which has been backed up. Billions of dollars have been fraudulently given to invalid claimants. Okay. So it's a problem with the program itself already, and it's another government program. So, as you said, why give them more money to do more problems?
Now, just to be clear, because I do. Man,
I can't find out.
I believe, I agree with what you're saying about the restitution, because we have evidence of, what's the company over in London that was insuring the slaves in the Middle Passes? Something of London.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're talking about.
Right. We have individual institutions that are definitely guilty of benefiting from slavery, and I believe there is a direct route. The only issue,
the Lords of London. Lords of London.
Yeah, Lords of London. Yes, I am going to disagree with you though, because on one part of it, because it's like, when I do agree with you, but I do understand the somewhat what you're trying to say, and I want to see if I give you a scenario where the government actually works properly, does that change? Because I believe the government is culpable in certain things, that the reason why reparations are, even though we just got to be honest, there's nothing that's ever going to be able to fix the wealth gap. There's nothing that the government can do, in my opinion, even with reparations, because they're not going to be able to just do something and then it close, right? That's just my opinion. However, because it was the U.S. government that allowed it, it's one of those things where I kind of understand where you come from, because it's like, okay, well, the U.S. government allowed things to happen to Black people before anybody on this program was even alive.
Right.
It has negatively affected us for generations. The United States government is guilty, and they are, like my man said, they're culpable of something. The problem is, right, like you said, the allocation of funds. You talked about the PPP loans.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a situation where we get reparations, and I feel like it's going to be messed up. We're going to be standing in line. You're going to be like, hey, what's up, Black man? Then somebody going to turn and be like, hola. and you're gonna be like, wait a minute, you in the same line I'm with. You're gonna turn to your left, and somebody gonna be like, konnichiwa. Whoa. They get them too.
Right.
And I do feel like it would be some sort of mismanagement going on, but I think, and this is just the question that I would ask to you, and it's almost a air quote impossible scenario, but I still want to get your opinion. If the government actually administered it right and said, look, this is the money that was collected, or this is what the cost of slavery and Jim Crow and all these things were worth, okay? If they said, well, because of the way the government is ran now, we might not be able to do it in a monetary form, but you know what we can do? We can say, hey, black people, because you missed out on the first land, when they did the land lotteries and stuff and told people to move west, you missed out on that. You can actually own a piece of America now, right? No property taxes, or they give us some sort of benefit for just being black, and they actually do it right, and it doesn't apply to anybody. But we got a couple of terms they like to use now: FBA, ADOS, black people, not immigrant black people. We're talking about black people who can trace their lineage back to slavery.
Exactly.
Right? Those people are the only people standing in line, and those people are the only people who get maybe some of these benefits that you don't agree with, like some of the taxation that we have. We get some sort of benefit for being black, and that is kind of how it goes. And because the thing about it is, you got to look at it like this. We all pay taxes, right? We get a refund, we get something back. It's like you're giving me the money I already put in back to me. It's not really like I'm getting anything. So because the government has no real method to make money except for collecting taxes, then in this hypothetical, these corporations who have benefited, they are the ones who put all this money together, and it is put into, like I said, some sort of fund that is handled outside of the government. And the United States government adds some in, maybe through some tariffs or something like that, so the American people are not responsible for it. Is it something more that you could get along with if it was done somewhat in that manner, or would it still be a no?
That would be more ideal, because what you're basically saying is that the American taxpayer, the average, taxpayer, isn't at fault and isn't being charged for it, which I'm all for. I completely advocate for non-taxpayer, revenue generators. And if our government operated in that way, then yeah, any monies collected that they have to dole out for any, government program isn't coming out of hardworking people's pockets. And if it is determined to where, a reparations package could be provided to those actual descendants of slaveries who have proof of, of that, then yeah, absolutely. I'm also supportive of the idea of freeing up federal lands for those indigenous people as well, which I'm supportive of doing as in my role as governor of California, and also providing the type of program that you're talking about. My biggest problem with it is that government does not generate its own money out of thin air. That's what's happening right now by way of printing up money through our Federal Reserve, and these bailout packages and stimulus checks are a result of that. That's adding to our debt. That's also adding to the amount of money that we're going to end up paying in taxes later on down the line. So if we want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves deeper into debt and also giving ourselves an opportunity to build some generational wealth, then we can't keep throwing money at the problem. We got to dig ourselves out of that hole and step up on the mountain in order to move forward.
What about this when it comes to the ideal of reparations? What about companies, especially big conglomerate companies that actually benefited from slavery? Would you support the ideal of them actually contributing financially to reparations? Because, like,
Yeah.
for example, you got like Lehman Brothers, you got
Mm-hmm.
J.P. Morgan Chase, New York Life,
Brooks
a
Brothers,
bunch of
got
companies, Brooks Brothers,
yeah.
exactly, USA Today. These companies that actually benefited from slavery, giving back.
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. Restitution, charging those companies and individuals directly, even the US government, what
Mm-hmm.
they did to the people of Oklahoma and, the MOVE movement. They need to be fined for their crime, and
So it's just pretty much the word of the word reparations, which you have a problem with.
yes, because it's more so again, this is all wordplay, even with our criminal justice system, how much justice do we actually see from it? It's
None at all.
exactly. And with health care, I mean, again, they're talking more so about health insurance. I don't care about health insurance. I don't care if you should have to be forced to pay health insurance. I don't want to be forced to have to pay health insurance. But health care in general, of course, I want to make sure I'm a healthy person, period. So yeah, it sucks that we have to change the dialogue and kind of, use corrective language to get us in the right mindset so we can understand each other and come to an agreement as to what it is that we want. And restitutional pay would be a way to make sure that the pain and suffering of those that were, descendants of slaves are actually receiving some restitution for their suffering.
Yeah, because I'm not going to lie to you. Like that's one of my, not even my biggest fear, but that's just one of, if you ask me, if I said what problem would I ever have with it, it would be based on the history of this country. It would be based on the history of the federal government, and it would be just based on the history of politics and all these different things in this country. I have yet to see anything come down from the government be put specifically. And when I say specific, I mean specific where there are no coded language.
Mm-hmm.
There is nobody else standing in that line. You understand what I'm saying? Shout out to all the people out there in the diaspora, whatever the case may be. I love y'all, but I'm not talking to y'all right now. You understand what I'm saying? I'm talking to Black American people whose family is from this country. I just keep feeling like we could get to that point, but they're going to mess it up because now everybody, I think, to be honest with you, by the end of it, bro, we gonna have like the LGBTQ community stand in line with us, and they're going to get it as well. And it's a situation where that is I don't even want to say my only fear, but it's like, if everybody gets it, can we really say it was reparations, right?
Exactly.
Because now, if you include the LGBTQ community, shocker to some people out there are people that are white, that are homosexual, lesbians, whatever the case may be. So now everybody's in line, just depending on what type of minority class you belong to, you're going to qualify for something that was only supposed to come to us. That is my only issue, because I don't believe the government is ever going to do anything, number one, to benefit us directly like that. And number two, they're going to manipulate it the same way they did, like you said, with those PPP loans, the same way they've done even with these stimulus packages, right? It's not being reflected upon the people. It's still going to these corporations. Even if you want to talk about the vaccine or any of these type of things are, the government is paying for it. And my question is, which vaccine does the government order? There has to be some sort of back channel going on where they are paying for this vaccine for this company. Why? Why would you give out the Moderna vaccine for free versus the AstraZeneca or versus this one? You understand what I'm saying? You have to be able to take a step back, take a deep breath, and say, okay, a lot of this doesn't make sense. So that is the main issue that I have with reparations, is I am concerned that the government's going to find a way to mess it up, and we're basically going to be in the same boat. And then it'll be the end of it, right? Like we gave y'all reparations, but then we're looking around and we saw all minorities getting reparations. We got people just coming across the border who don't even have citizenship, and they're able to get something as well. It's going to be like, well, what was for us?
Right. Let me
And we're
add,
going to end up being in that same position that we're in right now.
if I may add to this, to what you're saying also, during World War II or after World War II, the Japanese people that were held in internment camps were awarded reparations. This is generational. So those Japanese third generation Japanese Americans here in this country are receiving reparation payments paid for by us. Okay.
Right.
And it's just absurd because, like you said, it could be a program that's just mismanaged completely, and those people that are receiving payments shouldn't even be receiving them. You may have some white people that step in line and say, well, my grandmother was black, and here I am. So so you never know how it works. And that's what I'm saying, is because there's so many nuances to how the program could actually be implemented. There needs to be more discussion first on if it is necessary. And if so, how will we be able to go about making it happen successfully? Right now, our government officials don't have a clue as to how that may come about, other than looking at the color of our skin and saying, okay, I guess you get it.
Gotcha. All right. You got something, Corey?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, brother, what I want you to do now is I just want to kind of just get to a couple of personal things, then we're gonna let you get on your way. If you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about your family, and I want to know about. You said you was a rapperist. I want to hear a little bit. I'm not gonna ask you to rap tonight. I'm not gonna put you on some bars. Yeah, I'm not gonna ask you to give us no bars tonight. But I do want to hear a little bit about your music career, and I gotta step out real quick because for some reason my AC is not on. So yeah, I'm listening. But go ahead.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I moved to California from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that was to pursue a career in music. So I was about 17 at the time, and when I moved out here, was working with lots of people to become like this mainstream musician. And it didn't gel. It didn't end up solidifying because I wasn't wanting to sell out my creative control and power as a musician to, outside influences. These major record labels, they're the ones that are dictating as to what type of music gets put out there to the public. They have a term called A&R, and which is basically a representative of the record label that sits over the musician and picks and chooses which songs go on their albums. I didn't like that. I didn't like a record label having that amount of control over the music that I was putting out there. And so I chose to go the independent route. So in doing so, I was successful, I guess, on the underground level, to where I have my first album available on all major music streaming platforms like Pandora and Spotify and iTunes and all that good stuff. I even landed one of my songs in the movie, Scary Movie 4. So I've been successful in pursuing my music as an independent artist. And of course, because of that, you don't get much shine in the mainstream light, And
what's your rap name? Just so I can go look it up, because like I said, I drive trucks, man. So I be on the road. So I got Spotify. And I might go listen to your album.
Me too. I gotta be a judge on them bars, man. I'm a real harsh critic. You understand what I'm saying? So you gotta become a flame, brother.
What's your rap name, just so I can make sure I add this to my playlist? What was your?
I'm about to write it down. Give it to me.
Well, my first album is called The Real, so it's just as it sounds, The Real, and my artist name is Q Ball. That's QBALL.
Okay. Gotcha.
Oh yeah, daddy.
You
I'm
like quick,
checking that out.
ball like basketball. So
Gotcha. Okay, and then the other part of the question is and I don't know if you answered it while I was, hopefully you did, but just tell us a little bit about your family, man. I saw you have a wedding ring on. Can you just tell us a little bit about your family, kids,
I got a ring
all
on
those
it.
different type of things? Go ahead.
For sure. Well, my wife, she locked me down.
Okay.
Almost 10
Same
years ago. All right. Lucky man. Well, yeah.
Same here.
Me too. I don't wear one, but go ahead.
All right. We all corralled in here. But
Same
hey,
gentleman's club.
yeah, it's a good thing. I was pursuing my music when we first met, and she actually got blindsided by all of this political stuff, as well as I did, because when we met, I was in the studio and working with other artists and all of this other stuff. But yeah, my wife and I, we've been together for 10 years, been married for 9. We just had our first son, who is 19 months. His name is Chancellor. So
Congrats.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yes,
I appreciate it. Thank you, brothers. And I mean, me being a single man and, just wanting to settle down, look for that love of my life and being open to it, it kind of just happened. I think that's how it should happen is, you just open your heart to the possibility and, God will provide. And
I was gonna say it only took you a year, huh?
it did. I was like, this is the one.
There you go. Hey, I like it, man. We had a little bit of conversation about how long it should take a man to figure it out. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you said y'all been together 10 years. Y'all been married for 9 of those, man. I like that. But I'm sorry, continue. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, because it shouldn't take you, sitting around forever. I mean, when I met my wife, I was in my late 20s, you know what I'm saying? I had already dated as many women as I could enjoy. And at that point, at a point in my life where I didn't want to be with any woman. I just wanted to focus on my career and, putting myself into position to where I wouldn't have to worry about finances, And I think that shift in mindset just kind of gave me tunnel vision to where I was able to focus on, the matter at hand. But with me still being open to, wanting to have a family and have kids and all of that stuff, I didn't completely push aside that possibility. And like I said, God blessed me with this woman to where I met her, and a year later, we ended up getting married. And been
awesome,
married.
Man. Okay, see, I like to get a well-rounded view of the candidate, because sometimes they just ask you policy, try to jam you up, try to trip you up, man. But I must say, man, I'm impressed, man.
Thank you.
I heard you on Aquarian Anarchy, and I know y'all kind of have different conversations over there, and I really wanted to kind of go through what your vision for California was. But for you to be running as a Republican, I would say that the current Republican Party doesn't deserve you. I really wish that there wasn't a 2-party system and there was another way you could run. Like you said, there's no way you could get there by running as a Democrat, because Gavin Newsom is their golden boy, and they're not going to allow that to happen. But a definite the way you justify some of the things that you talked about, I think, in my opinion, would be a better direction for the national GOP platform. I have no idea why they don't start to move towards that, but I mean, to me, they're still a part of the problem as well. But I understand
Grand old party. That's why.
I understand the way national politics work. Now, with that being said, man, in a minute or less, I just want you to look directly in the camera, man. Get that $1 million smile and tell the people why, if they have a special election, or in 2022, they should give you their vote.
Absolutely. Well, we, the people of California, have an awesome opportunity here to reinstill a new government, one that's more reflective of our desires, our needs as a community, and the true problems that we want to have addressed. I'm one of those people that have been dedicated towards providing solutions to these problems instead of just talking about it. I actually walk the walk, and I have a record to prove it. So if you want to give me a chance to be governor of the people, by the people, and for the people, then do anything and everything that you can to help me get elected. It is going to take a global effort to make this happen, since we are fighting superpowers out here in California that want to make sure the establishment remains in control. That is one thing that I am adamantly is anti-establishment. So although I'm running as a registered Republican, I am not a Republican Party member. So I'm not officially representing the Republican Party. I'm representing the people of California and wanting to level that playing field politically to give us an opportunity to compete. So visit my website, wildstar2022.com. Please fill out a pledge card because I'm in need of as many volunteers as possible, since I'm not funded by special interest groups or, big bankers and all that stuff. I need people like you to make this happen, so we got to put our money where our mouth is and help fight for freedom and bring back liberty to the state of California.
No doubt. Definitely make sure, I hit you up on Twitter. Make sure you definitely give me those links so I can actually put this along with the video or whatnot. But brother, like I said, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. I really, like I said, I really like some of the things you said. I think, when we start talking about, a lot of people say conservative principles, but a lot of what you said is it seems like you're trying to reduce the impact of the government and people's lives, and you're never going to have a disagreement from somebody like me. Corey, what you got?
Oh man, I just want to thank the brother for coming on. Appreciate your time, the conversation and information that you provided us with. I just want to say one quick thing. I know Joe Biden announced today a certain special kind of day that I won't say, but for all of us that's in the black community, in the black culture, today is Nipsey Hussle Day, because it's the day he was assassinated. So rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. That's what we acknowledge. Nipsey Hussle Day, man.
Much love to Nipsey Hussle.
Wait, it's not on his birthday?
No, it's today he was killed. Today is the day.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden today, like I said, I'm not getting into it because
Oh yeah, no, you good.
Yeah, but he named it something else. But in the hood, this Nipsey Hussle Day. Damn it, we're gonna keep it like that.
Amen to that.
No doubt, man. Well, once again, man, we appreciate everybody tuning in on Libre TV, or if you watch us over there on Twitter. This has been Purple Pill Politics. And like we always say on the show, we don't care whether you're Democrat, Republican, blue, red, liberal, or conservative. We just ask that you don't be stupid. So until next week, we'll see everybody back again, 7 p.m.